This is our full driving review, all new generation of the Volvo V60. And I welcome you here to Autogefuehl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas. An exterior, interior, with a lot of surprises, I can tell you, and of course a driving experience. And this will also of course show how the S60, the sedan version later of this car, will behave. So join us now here in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The second generation of the 60 model lineup with Volvo is here on the so-called SPA platform, and that is the same platform that the bigger models, the 90 models, so XC90, V90, S90 are using, and also the new XC60. Here the second generation of the V60, you can see here the front grille with those vertical fins. This is the Momentum trim level. I'm really happy to show you a mid trim level. Probably Momentum is the trim level. That's how the car will be bought by most people. With the inscription, the top trim, which I do not recommend because it's even more expensive. Then you get also a chrome finish, which is in this case a little bit nicer, but I think overall it looks quite sporty already, also with a lower bumper right there. And those are Thor's Hammer LED headlamps. They are already included here in the Momentum trim. Probably later they will also go with the entry level trim, which is a little bit less expensive than this one, but I think the Momentum is actually a good pick. Also with a strong red color for you here today, but we've already shown you some other colors which we have here on location that you can pick your favorite color for today. But for camera, I always tend to pick the strongest color if available. 4.76 m or 15'6" is the length of this new generation. It's 14 centimeters longer than the predecessor, and that's actually a quite significant change. We'll see how that one plays out in the interior for sure. This one here has 18-inch rims. I think it's a good compromise overall. They already look huge, but you still have enough tire left that you don't damage those too easily. Also in this two-color scheme here. Very beautifully done. Overall, it's a rather simplistic design. You can see round shapes here at the height of the door handle, chrome contrast around the windows, also with the same color here, the chrome design of the roof rails. Here you can see how I closed the car. Hey, that even works with the rear door handle. Interesting. Usually it's just with the front door handle that when you hold your hand right there on the outside, it closes, also the mirror closes, and when you put your hand inside, but it also worked with the rear handle. Interesting finding. And then this classic estate shape here with a little stronger shoulder line. And as I said, later on you will also have the S60, which will be absolutely completely the same car overall, unless you'll just have the line dropping right here. This one, of course, here more practical in the loading volume, which we will soon take a look at. So here we go with the rear, with this classic shape of the Volvo SUVs and also the estates, that we have those vertical taillights right there, which are then again have this horizontal shape at the lower part. Overall, a rather clean Scandinavian design here as well. And in the lower part we really see real exhaust tips, no fake at all, the real deal. Although, they are just using the 4-cylinder engines. Do you want to know more about the engines? You can see that you can hardly see anything with those classic engine covers here. And the diesel, all 2-liter 4-cylinder, same for the petrol engine. This one here, diesel today, is either available with 150 or 190 horsepower or front-wheel drive. And then you have the petrol engines, which go also starting with front-wheel drive, then with 250 horsepower. Then you got an all-wheel drive version with 310 horsepower. And then there will be the plug-in hybrids, and they will be very powerful. 340 system power output or 390 horsepower system power. This one then will be the T8. And 390 horsepower for such a mid-size car? This is really something. But of course, most people also want to keep rather low in the price. It will still be a very expensive car. 40,000 at least. And if you equip a vehicle with, some stuff, 50,000 easily, and some more, then you can already reach 60,000 euros, just, to give you some expensive examples. But it will be the same list price if you compare the competitors, Audi A4, Mercedes C-Class, BMW 3 Series. So it's the premium segment, you pay the high prices. But sometimes, of course, there will be some discounts or special leasing rates, with then again, differentiate a little bit from the list price, which is again really high. This is the car key and the keyless entry I showed you earlier. Very solid door handles, also solid door closing sound inside of the doors. Momentum trim level with the so-called city weave option, really beautiful with the grey fabric, Scandinavian living room style, soft touch leatherette on the armrest. Then here also soft touch with the structured material. Really beautifully done, also galvanized door handles from the inside, optional with memory function for the seat if you have two drivers, Harman Kardon, optional sound system, about 2,000 euros, but it really pays off if you like music. It's a great sound for a mid-sized vehicle, I can tell you. Then the rest of the interior with a bright setup here with the so-called city weave optional, as I told you. I can really recommend you that. Steering wheel with a great contrast, dark outside, bright interior, and wow, this is really so cool. I can understand if some people say, yeah, it's a little bit too much for me, but I think it is daring somehow. We also seen that on Geneva Motor Show and also in the Volvo V40. And it's fabric on the inside and leatherette on the outside. So a sustainable solution also Volvo is offering as alternative to real leather. I think really great that they offer it in the middle trim. But you can also go with just black fabric seats in most countries if you want a more subtle view. Here in this case also then with the electric support for all the seats. This is with lumbar support electric for the lower seat, and then here for the higher seat option. But I think it's really a wow effect with the interior, and great that they offer that already right here. Also with the entry cap at the lower part. So I think with the aluminum look as a contrast right there. You can of course argue if it fits to the red exterior color. I think maybe not in all cases, but I would definitely have picked this one here in the interior with a blue exterior. That would fit tremendously. So and now let's get inside. The doors open not that wide, but it's still easy to get inside. Mid-size standard vehicle, so you have a rather low seating position. The window is not that big, so you don't have the widest view to the exterior. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", and this is here equipped with a panoramic roof, so it doesn't leave too much headroom. If you want more headroom, if you're taller than me, then leave out this panoramic roof. We'll soon show you as well. Also with a nice bright fabric here from the inside of the ceiling. Overall, very comfortable, those seats. Superb, and to me, I can just, this is also something subjective, but I tested so many vehicles in the past years, and I think Volvo has the most comfortable seats overall, from the seat form. And of course, if they also offer some great materials, then it's definitely a good fit. Also the seatbelt here is in bright color, by the way. So, I tend to like driving SUVs because it's just more comfortable if you have the upright seating position. But with Volvo cars, I always experienced it, even if you have the normal conservative classic cars, which are low in the seating position, they are still super comfortable, and you don't get this lower back fatigue because their seat form is somehow, just good. Steering wheel can be adjusted in all the ways. Like this, also a very smooth process, so you can really find a good driving position. Of course, it will be very exciting how much legroom we will have in the rear part, because they have made the car longer, as I said earlier. We will soon experience that. Before that, I want to show you the cockpit overview. And here it is, the interior overview. Wow, again, for a mid-size vehicle, I think to me also the most emotional one. That is, with those curved lines right here. This is, Mercedes is also using the curved lines for sure. You can compare it a little bit with that. But then again, they have this vertical screen setup, 9.2 inch. Soon more details to the software. Soft touch on the higher part. Everything is so well thought out from the build quality. Maybe some parts will be in the lowest trim, a little bit different, but as I said, this is middle trim with some options, so it will predominantly like this. Again, this two-color steering wheel is really pleasing. The materials here with the buttons, I was never a fan of that with the new Volvo models, but I think it's overall okay. Nothing super fancy, but also nothing bad. Also with the 6-speed manual gearbox right here, which we have. Then one button just left basically here in the top part to play music or for the loudness, and then some mandatory buttons left and right. Everything else is done with a touchscreen. Also here, for example, with the vent control. I'll soon show you more details about that. So the temperature, as I said earlier, you can scroll like this or tap like this or tap here. And the new voice control function, let's see if it works here. I'm cold.
Temperature set to 22 degrees.
See, and then let's try another way. Set temperature to 23 degrees.
Temperature set to 23 degrees.
Wait, that's really cool. So that's one less distracting thing if you have to do it while driving because you don't have a turning knob. Just use the voice command at the steering wheel and then say it. So I think it's a good solution overall then. Then the GPS looks like this. You can also make it bigger and it also reacts quite fastly like a smartphone style. Other than that, you have the sound system, told about that earlier. Really good surround sound with the optional Harman Kardon system. You can have some options right there. Top part, you can reach the settings, for example, also change the language. And if you scroll to the left, you can, for example, follow the rest. Could kill Holger cameraman right now when I flip down the rear head restraints. I was hurt by those once. I won't do it again for someone else. Camera. Right here, so quite okay resolution, is a very wide angle, but then at least you can see everything, and there's also the 360 degree available. Well, the rear door is still open, and if we close it like this, then we also have the full view. Pretty cool system overall. And then you can also go to the right and have some more options. For example, you can pick the radio setup and Bluetooth, but also Apple CarPlay is available or Android Auto if you connect it with the cable. Now we also have a head-up display, for example for speed and the maximum speed allowed, and you will also have some GPS information when the route is running. And the digital instruments, left side speed, right side RPM, in the middle part you get some additional information, for example, and also temperature, doors open, and on the right lower part you'll then get a consumption, which is again just in standstill, not realistic at the moment. Very nice detail. It's actually a quite huge rear mirror. That's good to see all the stuff behind, and it is frameless, therefore it's still somehow elegant and just a nice detail in this vehicle. So this is here in the middle console. It's a simple slick material, but it's bright and it feels actually matte and somehow good. And thank you Volvo for avoiding more shiny black plastic elements, because we don't like them, Brian and me. In the front, you can, for example, put the key, then you can slide this one open, like this, and there are some adaptive cup holders here, 2 right there, another 12-volt power supply. This is then the start engine button, you just turn it to the right. Drive modes are selected here with this crystal style, and then the electric handbrake, and this armrest is fixedly attached, and here you have 2 USB supplies then, but not too much room right there. And if you want, optional, also still a classic CD changer. And now this panoramic roof, there is a shade available you can remove if it gets too hot, for example, meanwhile. And wow, it really goes all over the vehicle, especially for the rear passengers. It will be great. And if you think, I want more space than in a convertible, but at least I want a big panoramic roof in my non-convertible, that's available right here. Well, the opening in the front is not too huge, but overall the glass roof is really huge and brings so much light into this already light interior. Now the seating experience in the rear compartment, well, the door doesn't again open that wide. but still it's fairly okay to get in here. But it could be a little bit, you know, not that handy when you want to install child seats. Isofix, by the way, on the outside of the seats each. Well, and this is the key to this new generation. Now you have proper legroom in the rear. Of course, when the car gets long on the exterior, you will have more problems, you know, in some parking lots or narrow cities. But if you want more legroom, this new generation will help you. Still legroom left, right there. And also this black, this back plastic cover here with this matte material again. It's simple, but it's so well done somehow again. Headroom. Also, again, it fits for me. Again, if you are taller than me, taller than 1.86 m or 6'1", then you should leave out the panoramic roof if you're driving with tall passengers in the rear a lot. Overall, it's also a good seating position here. However, the segment itself, those mid-size sedans, tend to have rather short benches in the rear, and you fall backwards a little bit, which is not good, because for long-term seating comfort, it's good when your pelvis or Hüfte or Becken is, in German, is more upright. You know, that's better for the long-term comfort. Then also the same setup here with the bright seatbelts and the nice city weave design in the rear part. And if you want to fold them already from here, that is possible. You can also have, you know, this automatic function. It's the same when I push the button in the front, that those head restraints go down. You have a better view to the rear then. And then they fold flat like this. I think it's a good solution, also with a soft cover here on the back part. And we'll of course soon show you how that looks from the rear. And last but not least, push it back. You cannot adjust the angle. You have this middle part with some cup holders right there and the ski hatch available. And optional, you can also get here another climate unit. Let's take a look at that in detail. So if the engine is running, you also have seat heating for the rear passengers. Let's make Holger sweat now. And you can also control the temperature right there. So it's optional, even a 4-zone AC. But again, costly option. You have to ask yourself how often you would use it for your rear passengers. So opening the electric hatch, either with the button here, with the key, or then with this foot opening mechanism if you have something in your hands, and then it opens and it closes the same way if you do just the same move, by the way. Then this cover is the weakness of this vehicle. You can either put it up like this in this rail on the side, but it does not do that automatically, or you can remove it completely and then it gets a little bit wobbly like this. So I really don't like this. They have better solutions in other vehicles for sure. But then the rest I think is quite okay. 530 to 1360 liters is the loading setup. Here you can separate the trunk. That's a good solution here to secure things inside the trunk. And then below this one here you have some more space, or maybe all optional replacement tire. On the left side you can store some smaller things, but then again, if you want all those different attachments here, you have to pay a lot extra. I think that's not a nice move from them, that you have to pay for everything extra when you want to install some more things. Then on the right part here you can have the flipping of the bench like this. This is an easy solution, which is, for example, missing in that way in an Audi A4. You have some more work to do there. This is a very easy solution. Then you can load through a lot of things. This is really cool. It's not as in those very old Volvos, which have super square dimensions in the rear, but still a very usable compartment. And now to the driving part, aka Thomas's driving lounge, with the new Volvo V60, manual gearbox 6-speed, and the D4 diesel 190 horsepower is 6.9 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And by the way, if you think about critical diesel, I'm not a diesel fan either, but this one here also now with the SCR cleaning and fulfills the Euro 6D temp regulation. So overall it is fulfilling all the needs for the very strong emission tests that are implemented right now. So if you're driving a lot of kilometers, that might make sense for you then, especially because the consumption with the Volvo vehicles in general they are actually quite high. Let's see what we can score today here, and we'll also give you different driving impressions, motorway, countryside, and so on. We'll start here, some corners, and also soon head on to the motorway to show the performance of the engine. Overall, it's basically the standard suspension we have equipped here today with the car, and it smoothens out the waves on the road very evenly, so that makes a very smooth impression. Get on the motorway right here. Oh, people walking side of the street. Interesting. The manual gearbox, actually, Tesla Model S arriving here. The manual gearbox is actually quite easy to control. It's actually... Oh, I don't want to get on here, right? Okay. So, it's very easy to shift, no resistance. It's also in the very height level of your arm when you just put your arm right here, so it's actually fun to shift this as well. You see the car is leaning to the side a little bit, so the suspension, it doesn't have the sportiest setup, which to me is totally fine, because not every vehicle does necessarily need to have the sportiest setup. So Volvo here, at least with the base suspension, is more going for a standard suspension setup, let's take it that way, but I feel it would be a good compromise. So for also the noise insulation, it seems very quiet here in this cabin. They definitely have improved that if you compare it to the previous generation. It is somewhat longer than the previous generation, yes, but I don't feel that it would be less agile or that it would be bulkier than before or something. So I think they've managed that also with the new platform setup, which brings more torsional stiffness than to the vehicle. So interesting also because Holger is driving an A4 estate at the moment. What would you say, just from the first impression, feeling, suspension-wise, what do you think is the difference?
Well, I think it's more smooth in its curve.
Really? You think that this one is smoother than the A4? Right, yeah. So, I mean, Audi is obviously going a little bit sportier in the direction, BMW then even sportier. So, this one here, and I realized it quite often before, from the whole driving feeling, Volvo is coming closest to the setup that Mercedes is using, whereas Audi goes a little sportier and then BMW even sportier. So you can just pick that depending on your preference, for example. So let's now go here with the first acceleration test. Third gear, 70 kilometers to 100. Let's go. Plop. There we go. So that's, not a performance vehicle, but surely enough performance for the motorway. No problem here with the four-cylinder engine. That's totally fine. Let's now also head up in the higher gears. See, sixth gear now at 100 kilometers an hour, and we see we're just above 1000 RPM, and that's of course thanks to the diesel, that we can keep it at very low RPM than in those areas. And at 100 kilometers now, still pretty silent in here, so I think overall a good result. I also really like the new head-up display where I can keep the speed directly in the line of my view. That's also well done. The car does not feel that big. Maybe also because the front cockpit compartment here is rather a little bit narrow, let's take it that way. I don't feel caged in, but I still think that it's feeling rather small for such a vehicle. Let's now also go back to some gears and see we can drive a little bit faster on this area. Next gear, going a little sporty now, 130, 140. And still, sound insulation wise, I think one of the best things they've changed here with the vehicle, it's really way more silent than the previous generation. And it gives me, although the suspension is not the stiffest one, not all set on the sportiest way, a good feeling here on the road. Also still, this car is stable when I'm changing here a little bit lanes on high speed. The one thing I already noticed was, for example, the XC60 or also one of the other new models, the steering feel. Look here, for example, in the very low angles, this is completely dead, in this like -5 to +5 degrees. not so much is happening. And then if you cross this angle area, it starts to feel a little bit artificial. So it's really easy to steer this vehicle, yes, and that helps you when you park in and out, but they don't manage to get a very natural steering feeling. So in this case, the German manufacturers have, a more finely tuned or refined setup with the steering, so you have more control of the car, and it's also a little bit more fun to drive the car.
Maybe we could get another feeling with another drive mode.
Yep, that's a good idea, Holger, with the drive mode. So we start here in the comfort mode. You get the eco mode, but that is reducing the throttle input a little bit, not changing the steering. This is more making sense if you have an automatic gearbox optional, then the eco mode will play more in effect. But we can also go to the dynamic mode, which is then increasing the throttle input. It would change with the automatic transmission that it goes up the gears later and down earlier again. Here we have the manual gearbox. You're doing that manually yourself anyway then. But I feel you have more throttle input. The car accelerates then a little bit earlier overall. And well, that the first angles of the steering are basically that. This is still the case. Let's do a lane change here and let the other vehicle by. Let's see if the rest of the steering changed a little bit. Let's go back again to the comfort mode and see. Yeah. So when you're then in those areas where the steering gives you response, the dynamic mode makes the steering a little bit stiffer then, so you have to work it a little bit more. And I think it's good that you have those options. If you, for example, think the steering is really too soft for me, then you can go to the dynamic mode and just control it for yourself. And if you then have the manual gearbox anyway, you won't have a problem that you drive with high RPM all the time, because you're shifting yourself anyway. So again, those driving modes make more difference when you have the automatic gearbox. But good to have them, to have the choice. So let's go to them. Yeah, German Autobahn is sometimes really some crazy stuff. If you're driving in Germany all the time, you get used to it. But if some foreigners then come here, they really think that those are racetracks. And well, for some parts it's true, but for the most parts it's not. Let's get to some more speed here. So now we're in 6th gear at 150 kilometers an hour, and the car is still remaining really silent. Lane change. Again, stable suspension-wise, but again, the thing driving-wise I criticize most is this rather numb steering feel, no matter in which mode you are actually in. But then again, the overall setup for this car is rather for this comfortable ride and not necessarily for the sporty ride. And then you could maybe say you could also excuse that for this. But it's surely something they could still improve. If we're driving on the motorway, by the way, it's also, higher speeds, but don't vary it that much. We can always tell you something about consumption, because that's something where you can say, yeah, that's maybe close to a minimum consumption. Then we had some acceleration tests, so we can also have somewhat an average, and at the moment we are about 7 liters on 100 kilometers. That's again way above the official stated figure for sure, but already a quite realistic figure. And I have to say, I would rather expect something like this from a petrol engine and not from a diesel. And that proves again the second criticism point. We have that with every Volvo, they consume too much fuel, and this downsizing they're doing is not working for the real consumption. It works for their fleet consumption, but not for the effective consumption you have as a customer. We'll keep you updated, by the way, with the consumption throughout this driving part. First, we'll now go off the motorway and have some more driving fun in the countryside. Now at about 70 kilometers here in the corner, pushing it a little bit. Holger's getting nervous. But that was quite well handled again. So overall, I think they found a great, comfortable suspension setup. Most people will be happier here with a little bit more comfortable suspension than with a very sporty suspension, because when you're driving this vehicle, a mid-sized vehicle, maybe really a lot of kilometers per year, then you more appreciate the comfort, I guess.
The side support from the seats could be better.
Side supports from the seat could be better, says Holger. Yeah, I mean, they are not that sporty, the seats. They have a little support in the thigh support is a little bit more stronger than the lower support here at your legs. So it's probably something very interesting that the co-driver is mentioning that, because me as a driver, I'm always holding onto the steering wheel, so I don't care about it that much because you can hold on there. But this car, unlike some off-road vehicles, does not have any panic handle somewhere. I like those panic handles, just the expression panic handle for the off-road cars, or also for some racing cars that are available for sure. So now I also see GPS commands in this head-up display. The clicking sound of the turning indicators is also rather subtle. I think you also hear that on camera. I think they found a good solution there. We have some of the French cars at the moment, which have a very strange turning indicator sound. So I'm always paying attention to that in detail as well. Route guidance is not only a head-up display, also in those digital instruments. By the way, some more information. You start with a very small screen in the analog instruments. This one is already an option. So if you get a low spec version, it might look different. But this one in the middle part, this will be the same. So there's the bigger route guidance there. So you can 3 places where you can see the route guidance. So overall, you can't be mistaken then for the route. And so far, I'm also quite fine by how we are led actually by this route. So that's really perfectly okay. Climate-wise, the AC does have a lot of power. I'm driving the Tesla Model X still at the moment, and sometimes the AC lacks a little bit of power there. But here the AC is actually quite powerful, so that might also be important for you, especially if you have this panoramic roof. Then it can get quite hot in the vehicle. So now more countryside routes, and I guess one of the most important things is that this car creates a very cozy feeling in the interior. So you feel at home, feel comfortable in your living room, so that calms you down. And I think this is something very good they've achieved, that you can just calm down inside this interior. Also for co-drivers?
Yeah, it's a couch potato feeling.
Couch potato feeling, yeah. Okay, yeah. So next I think we have to turn. Yeah, I think the route commands here in the displays could sometimes be a little bit more ahead in the center display. In the center display in the instruments, for example. Shifting again, I think they've really managed that very well. Smooth transitions right there. Overview, by the way, well, it's an estate, where it ends, you can directly see that. To the side mirrors is also very well possible. What about those assistance systems? Well, we have the blind spot monitor, which is one of the most important optional features. It always comes with the AEB. There we have it. This one here is the blind spot monitor. You see that red stripe, then you shouldn't change lanes. And then when I set the turning indicator, it flashes. It doesn't give an acoustic warning. We have the different with, I think, Audi and Mercedes both. For example, give an acoustic warning when you also set the turning indicator. But here it flashes or it stays on the light all the time. This is one option you must go for. This is really good for safety. The city assistance brake, the autonomous brake, this one is included in every Volvo now. I think it's also a very good step they are taking there. Other than that, you also have different cruise controls. There is a standard cruise control. Then we have here the adaptive cruise control. So the speed to the car, the distance to the car in front of us is being kept. I can also increase this distance or decrease it. Let me just close up to the car in front of me, and I can show you that better a little bit. So now the distance is being kept, and if I make it a little bit longer, then the car is reducing speed just a little bit. So, but we also have the so-called pilot assist, and if we set that, we have a green sign in the instruments. It's not meant to be in fully autonomous drive. You have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but just that I can show you, it is basically driving on its own now. Again, keep your hands at the steering wheel. This is just for show purposes now. I'm ready to grab the steering wheel again. And if I don't grab it, the car should also start to tell me, yeah, Thomas, you're an evil driver. Please keep your hands, yes. He now says, please steer again. So, but it's very stable here also, you know, it really keeps the car very stable in the lane. And usually what we've seen that all of those assistance systems are working really flawlessly with the Volvos. Before we get off, let's see if, no, now the pilot assist was deactivated. Why? Does it deactivate automatically when I change the lane or what? Let's see if yeah. So unlike some systems we've seen from the other manufacturers, it cancels itself as soon as I set the turning indicator. But I mean, I would say when you get off the motorway, probably even a better idea to do it just yourself, right? This pilot assist can be very helpful in traffic situations. We've tested that with the XC60 in our review. Also compare that one. If you're thinking, should I go for a Volvo Estate or SUV maybe? Because, yeah, see here also that it steers itself basically, and it assists you really. Therefore, it's called pilot assist. Now let's see, traffic sign recognition. Yes, showing me the new speed, but it's not adjusting the speed according to the new traffic sign. That's obviously not possible here. So I really have this pilot assist ready always when I'm in traffic jam, and for example, you know, staying in very low speed and like 10, 20, 30. And then you can also keep your hand off the steering wheel if you're just rolling, you know, in the traffic jam, and just relax yourself a little bit, and the car is accelerating and decelerating on its own. This is a really helpful feature. So I wouldn't really use is a 2-lane or 1-lane? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I really would use it on a motorway everyday basis, but I would surely use it in the traffic jam. That's for sure really cool. Good acceleration here, definitely. And we know one difference is to Mercedes and BMW. They have rear-wheel drive. Audi and this one you have either front-wheel drive or the all-wheel drive. Yes, those rear-wheel drive models, they are sportier to drive. They are a little bit more fun. Here you feel you are pulled from the front rather than pushed from behind. So yeah, if you're a sporty driver, you will have more fun with the rear-wheel drive. Maybe then in winter times, which is again crucial for Sweden, for example, where the sky is coming from, then the front-wheel drive probably makes more sense. Or then if you of course have the all-wheel drive and you're always looking at the small Swedish flags here installed at the seats. I'm not sure if you've seen it on one of the interior overviews. If you're interested in the T8, by the way, the new plug-in hybrid, or the T6 plug-in hybrid, as I said earlier, 2 plug-in hybrid will be available. There's also this cutaway model I've showed you on Geneva Motor Show in the static review, and also more colors of this vehicle. So tune into this video as well if you could not get enough from the Volvo V60 here from us yet. Other than that, we have covered all of the different driving aspects. Consumption here about 6.7 liters now on 1 kilometer, so that's again not far from the 7 liter figure, and again you know, one of the weaknesses, but overall definitely an improvement to the previous generation in every single way. You also have to steer a little bit more than you maybe would like to have, not so progressive the steering, but overall this car sets sails on a very comfortable ride. Great seating position, great seats itself, comfortable suspension, calming less noise on the interior. Then of course a great sound experience if you want so, especially with the optional Harman Kardon system. And if you do not pay attention so much to a very sporty drive, then probably this one here is surely among the best offerings in the midsize segment. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Volvo V60. Well, exterior-wise, I think they have it definitely on point. So a very beautiful styling, elegant for sure, more elegance than sportiness, and that's also something that sums up the driving. Very comfortable, you feel at home, feel in your living room, but not that of a sporty touch. I think it's also not necessary, because then you can really pick. Do you want it a little bit sportier? Well, maybe go to another brand of those premium manufacturers. But if you are setting sails on this very comfortable living room experience, then you're really satisfied here with the V60. In general also, the interior, just wow. I think, to me at the moment, the best interior here now in the mid-size segment. It has this emotional touch, but at the same time also a cleanness from the Scandinavian design, and also great solutions here also for the lower or the mid-trim levels, and not only in the high trims. So, and of course here the biggest change dimension-wise in the second generation is that you now have more legroom at the rear. This is, among the biggest changes. So a lot of positive elements. Negative ones was, the cover on the trunk there in the rear could have been a better solution. Consumption too high, and steering wheel feel was a little bit too numb. Those were my negative points for today. Other than that, especially styling wise and the materials that are being used and the build quality, really superb. So surely among the best picks here in the mid-size segment. Would it be my pick at the moment in the mid-size segment? I think probably yes, when I get, a bright blue exterior then, especially then in the contrast to the interior we have here today. That could be really my thing, because I think in everyday driving life, I would also be okay to not have this very sporty feeling. And if it, would be more important to me to have some racing experience in the everyday driving life, then you can always go for a 3 Series or something. I think we really pointed out what's the emphasis of this car, and overall I really like it. What about you? Tell me your comments there, your opinion right there in our section, and discuss here with our Autogefuehl community, and see you next time.